Jay, what do you want to talk about in the third part of Transformers, man?
Well, the third party Transformers for 2013, my top five, starting with number five, I'm going to put up Hypernovae. This was an awesome figure to me. I thought the details on it, especially if you got the first edition that came out with the added pieces, was an absolutely beautiful figure.
Yeah, pay it.
And number four, gotta go with Perfect Effects, Arania, aka Black Arachnia. I thought the design cues on her were absolutely magnificent. The paint apps, the details, though she is delicate and definitely a collector's figure and not to be heavily handed and dealt with, but she is absolutely awesome. My number three, I actually have two tied at number three. I have Quake Wave, which is the masterpiece version of Shockwave, but I have him tied with Toy World's Orion because I think both of these third-party figures are outstanding incarnations of the G1 figures, and they are truly, truly throwback to G1 and are amazing homage figures, particularly with Orion being from the IDW comic book. Beautiful sculpt, beautiful figure. My number two on the list, even though I personally don't own this figure yet, is Project Genesis, aka Omega Supreme. I thought this figure is just ginormous. It is an absolutely enormous figure, great detail. It has pretty solid articulation and posability, as well as accessories and just all kinds of plated moving parts and light up parts. I think they did a brilliant job on the sculpt of this figure. But my favorite figure for 2013 that I've personally purchased, had the opportunity to handle, and once I had the figure actually in hand, became even more impressed with it versus the pictures I've seen and or other reviews, is Terminus Hexatron, aka Six Shot. To me, this figure is absolutely amazing. And if you have the means and the opportunity to get your hands on this figure, to me it is an absolute must-have. When I took this figure out, I was so impressed with it when, transforming it into its different modes and looking at its detail and its articulation and its accessories, it made me break my G1 Six Shot back out just for comparison and contrast. You understand what I'm saying? This figure is absolutely an amazing homage figure and definitely, in my opinion, the best for 2013.
Most definitely. I mean, after seeing that, I'm like, wow. And on tell you the truth, Jay, you got a good top five on your list. But man, my top five be simply this. A mixed bag of some, but it'll be mainly like third party too. So let me go ahead and get started on mine top five. Number five. Number five is a three-way tie between, well, subgroups, Jay. You got the third-party Stunticons, aerial bots, and a buttload of Predacons. Honestly, when I look at part, fans project, and I'm like, wow. I gotta like how they did their version of the Stunticons and pay homage to them in a heavy way. I mean, the way
those Stunticons are beautiful.
I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, these guys are freaking sick, Jay. I mean, I love how they, come piece by piece this year and start off with the first two, then the second two, and then last but not certainly the least, definitely none other than Motor Master. I mean, that was just flat out sick.
Absolutely.
But not to take away from them, you have got the aerial bots, which was done by TF Toys. I mean, they were just plain magnificent. I love how they, do the same thing, but take a look how different they were with all the figures, man. I mean, they did an awesome good job,
Yeah, GFC is pretty cool, man. I haven't had a chance to pick up the aerial bots yet, but obviously I did pick up Hercules, and again, an impressive figure and a humongous monstrosity, just brutal beast that Hercules is. I can only imagine that Uranus, aka Superion, is going to be just as impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to both adding the Fans Project and Stunticons, as well as the TFC aerial bots in my collection. But you also mentioned the Predacons.
Oh yes.
That you like.
Well, you gotta love it.
There's so many.
It's so flipping many, Jay, and I'm like, my mouth just dropped to the ground while I look at this, and I mean, without a shadow of doubt, I see some big time Predacons on so many levels. I don't know which one to pick. I mean,
Well, you've got the Unique Toys version, you've got the TFC version, and then you've got the, reformatted. And so it's interesting to see these different versions of Predaking coming out. When for so long, you waited for the G1 Predaking to be reissued, and they finally reissued him, and then the third-party manufacturers come out with all of the additional add-on pieces to make him look more cartoon accurate and to make him the biggest G1 combiner even bigger. And now you see the third-party manufacturers coming out and they're adding the articulation and detail that you wish they had added in G1 in the first place without having to buy all the extra add-on stuff. I mean, it's just amazing no matter which one you pick, whether it's the reformatted again, whether it's the TFC version and or the Toy World version. They're all amazing. I'm very impressed. I don't even know which one to buy.
Still, it's just that you got height and power and ways of idea that all three toy makers have done a magnificent job putting this all together. I mean, I'm glad that we have somebody doing a good Predacon idea and still made it look that hot, Jay.
Well, if that's your three-way tie at number 5, what's your number 4?
Number 4, whoa. Number 4 is another tie, and this time you got Big Toys Hypernovae and Chaos Paladin.
Right on. Chaos Paladin is a very nice figure as well.
Yeah.
He actually made it in my number 6.
Yep.
But since we were doing top 5, I did not include him, but that's an impressive figure as well.
Yeah. You have already talked about Hypernovae earlier on, but again, I like how Chaos Paladin played a major role in the Decepticon's role, and I'm still kind of loving how he became the founding father of the Predacons, and still, it just looks so wicked sick dope,
Yeah, definitely an impressive figure. I was very happy and pleased to get my hands on that figure and have the opportunity to add that to my collection as a representation of the fallen. Again, he's a very impressive figure, up close and personal, color scheme, the posability and articulation, and the craftsmanship and detail of this figure is really, really nice, especially considering the core part of him is more like a power core combiner with add-on pieces and armor. Only drawback, and that's why he was at number 6 versus making it in at number 5, was that though he could combine into his super robot mode, you still have to have him as 2 separate vehicles in his alt mode. And I would have loved for the alt modes to be able to combine so that you had the option to either have those super alt mode and or 2 individual attack vehicles, just like you would be able to use the extra parts as a gun emplacement or attack system for the power core combiner without him being combined as super mode.
Exactly.
I thought that the engineering could have been just a little bit better on him, but he's an impressive figure nonetheless.
Yep. Still, I can't ignore how they did a good job on him, which leads up to number 2. How about...
You skipped number 3.
Oh, number 3. My bad. I had a long jump, man. But if I had to go for number 3, number 3 is Fan Toys Quake Wave.
No doubt.
Because again, you already said something about that early on. Because again, they pay homage to Shockwave, and he should have been a masterpiece off the get-go. But again, they picked that idea up and made it look hot. I mean, how can you ignore a wicked cool figure like that?
Absolutely.
Which
leads you to number 2.
leads us to number 2. I gotta go for Masterminds Creations Texas Hacatron. And again, you put that as number 1 because, granted, he is pretty much Wicked Sick Dope as Stick Shot, and I love how most everybody liked this figure over so many others, and they did a good job of making a Wicked Sick Dope figure that should have been out by Hasbro a long time ago. But still, I have my emphasis on it. It just, this figure looks so good. How come it just nobody see this figure so close up? Because this figure is pretty awesome, though.
Yes, he is. Absolutely amazing.
I mean,
but what's your number 1, B?
Oh, number 1. We'll see. All right, I gotta say, Toy World's Orion. And everybody said, "What? He don't have that much." So what? The reason why he's number 1 on my book, not because he's Optimus Prime, but he paid homage to the IDW version of it, because he don't have the same weapons as Hacatron, but he should have got Optimus well and done, paying it homage to the IDW Prime, which Hasbro failed on,
Yeah, I mean, they did do what was it, Legends class version of him. I mean, we were hoping for a little more from you, Hasbro/Takara, but thank you, Toy World, for coming through for us. We appreciate it.
I mean, wow, shout out. They came hollering for our help, and they finally made an Optimus Prime worthwhile with the Matrix in tow, blaster, everything. I mean, they made it up real nicely, and honestly, Jay, I like that version of Optimus way better than anything. So, right now, with the third party closed for right now, we're gonna put in this part of the video for right now, which is part 1 of our video, man, because we got part 2 with Hasbro, So, because right now, I'm gonna say stay tuned for part 2. This is Big B and Jay Jarreau. We'll be back in part 2 of Retrospect 2013. Stay tuned.